The coffee cup exploded against the marble floor, and Marcus Hale's world stopped. Not because of the mess, because of what he saw in that split second. His boss, the untouchable billionaire Vivian Cole, standing alone by the window with tears streaming down her face as she watched families in the park below. The same woman who'd fired 3 executives last week without blinking. The same woman who never smiled, never showed weakness. Until now. He'd just seen something he wasn't supposed to see. And tomorrow, he'd probably pay for it. But before we get there, like this video, if you're watching from your city, drop a comment telling me where you are so I can see how far this story travels. Subscribe, because what happens next between Marcus and Vivian will keep you hooked until the very end. Marcus Hale had exactly $47 in his checking account when he dropped the coffee cup. Not $4,700, not $470. 47 actual dollars to last until Friday's paycheck, which meant ramen for dinner again, and praying his daughter Lily wouldn't ask why they couldn't get pizza like her friend Emma's family. The cup slipped from his fingers during his afternoon break. Third floor break room, 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday that had already been shit before it got worse. He'd been running on 4 hours of sleep because Lily had a nightmare about monsters in her closet, and he'd spent half the night sitting on her bedroom floor telling her stories until she finally drifted off. Then his alarm didn't go off. Then traffic was a nightmare. Then his manager, Janet, spent 20 minutes chewing him out for being 12 minutes late, which wasn't even late compared to Brad from accounting who strolled in at 10:30 every day smelling like weed and regret. But Brad's dad played golf with someone important, so Brad was untouchable. Marcus was not. The cup shattered. Ceramic fragments scattered across the polished floor in a pattern that looked almost artistic. Coffee spread like spilled ink, dark and accusing. "Damn it," Marcus muttered, already dropping to his knees, already reaching for the paper towels mounted on the wall. That's when he saw her. Vivian Cole stood 15 feet away, perfectly still beside the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Madison Park. She wasn't looking at him. Wasn't looking at the broken cup or the spreading coffee stain. She was staring out the window with an expression Marcus had never seen on her face before. Longing. Raw, unfiltered longing. She was 30 years old and worth somewhere north of $2 billion, depending on which business magazine you believed. She'd built her tech empire from nothing, some algorithmic trading platform Marcus didn't fully understand despite working in her company's operations department for 3 years. She wore custom suits that probably cost more than his car. Her hair was always perfect, pulled back in a way that said professional and don't fucking touch me in equal measure. She had eyes like winter storms and a reputation for being the coldest person in any room. Right now she was crying, not sobbing, not making noise, just standing there with tears running silently down her face while she watched the people in the park below. Marcus followed her gaze through the window and saw what she was seeing. Couples walking hand in hand, parents pushing strollers, a man teaching his kid to ride a bike, someone's golden retriever chasing a tennis ball. Ordinary happiness. The kind you couldn't buy. Marcus should have looked away, should have focused on cleaning up his mess and getting back to his desk before Janet found another reason to document his performance issues. Should have pretended he hadn't seen anything. Instead, he stood up. "Ms. Cole?" She turned so fast he almost stepped back. The tears were gone, wiped away with a movement too quick to track. Her expression shifted like a door slamming shut, cold professionalism sliding back into place with practiced ease. "Marcus." Her voice was controlled, flat. "Did you need something?" He should have said no, should have apologized for the cup and excused himself and let her maintain whatever wall she'd just rebuilt. "Are you okay?" The question hung between them like something fragile and dangerous. Vivian's jaw tightened. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "I said I'm fine." Sharper now. The voice she used in board meetings when someone questioned her decisions. Marcus gestured toward the window. "You were watching them." "I was taking a break." "You were crying." "You're mistaken." "Ms. Cole." "That's enough." She cut him off with surgical precision, but something flickered in her eyes, something that might have been panic or might have been shame. "Clean up your mess and get back to work." She started to walk past him. Marcus didn't plan what he said next. The words just came out, probably because he was tired and broke, and already having a terrible day. So what did he have to lose? "You deserve to be happy too." Vivian stopped. actually stopped walking. For 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours, she stood completely still with her back to him. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You don't know anything about what I deserve." Then she left. Marcus stood alone in the break room with broken ceramic at his feet and the distinct feeling that he'd just stepped into something way over his head. The coffee was still spreading across the floor. He grabbed paper towels and started cleaning, his hands moving on autopilot while his brain tried to process what had just happened. He'd seen Vivian Cole exactly 14 times in 3 years. Twice in all-hands meetings where she talked about quarterly performance metrics. 3 times in the elevator where she never made eye contact or acknowledged anyone's existence. Once in the parking garage when her driver was late and she stood there looking like a statue carved from ice and ambition. The other times had been similar, distant sightings of someone who existed in a completely different stratosphere. She didn't know his name until today. He was certain of that, but she'd known it when she turned around, known it without hesitation. Marcus finished cleaning and threw away the paper towels. His hands were shaking slightly. He went back to his desk and tried to focus on the spreadsheet he'd been working on before his break. Inventory reconciliation for the third quarter, thrilling stuff, but the numbers kept blurring together. Janet appeared at his cubicle at 4:15. "Marcus, can I see you for a minute?" His stomach dropped. "Sure." He followed her to one of the small conference rooms near HR. She closed the door and sat down across from him with a manila folder that definitely didn't contain good news. "I need to talk to you about your performance," Janet said. Here it comes, Marcus thought. He'd seen this movie before. He was about to get fired for being late too many times, or for the cup, or for some bullshit metric he'd missed while trying to keep his head above water as a single parent working 50 hours a week. "Look," he started. "I know I've been—" "You're being promoted." Marcus stopped. "What?" Janet smiled. She actually smiled, which was weird, because Janet never smiled at him. Janet usually looked at him like he was a coffee stain she couldn't quite scrub out. "Effective immediately, you're moving to Senior Operations Manager. 20% salary increase, full benefits package, and flexible scheduling to accommodate your situation with your daughter." Marcus stared at her. "Is this a joke?" "No joke. The decision came directly from Ms. Cole's office about an hour ago." "From Vivian Cole." "From the CEO herself, yes." Janet slid the folder across the table. "It's all in here. Sign the acceptance form and HR will process everything by end of week. Congratulations, Marcus. You've earned it." He hadn't earned shit. He'd been doing his job adequately at best, showing up late, leaving early for Lily's school pickups, barely scraping by. This didn't make sense, unless it did. Unless Vivian Cole had just done something incredibly generous or incredibly stupid, and Marcus wasn't sure which scared him more. 3 days later, Marcus was still trying to figure out if he was dreaming. The money hit his account Friday morning. Not the usual paycheck that barely covered rent and groceries, but a number that made him check his banking app 4 times to make sure it wasn't a mistake. Salary increase plus signing bonus, plus retroactive adjustment. For some reason, the HR email didn't explain. Lily had pizza that night. Real pizza from the good place, not frozen. She'd been so excited she'd literally jumped up and down in the kitchen. "Is it someone's birthday?" she'd asked, eyes wide. "Nope. Just felt like celebrating." "Celebrating what?" "Your old man got a promotion." She'd hugged him so tight his ribs hurt. 7 years old and already understanding that a promotion meant things might get a little easier. She shouldn't have to understand that. She should be worried about homework and cartoons and whether Santa was real, not whether Dad could afford to keep the lights on. But that was their reality. Had been their reality anyway. Now Marcus sat in his new office, an actual office with walls and a door and a window, trying to figure out what the hell was happening. The view wasn't anything special, just the parking lot and part of the street, but it beat his old cubicle by about 1,000%. His new responsibilities were outlined in a document that was mostly corporate jargon, but the practical translation seemed to be supervise 3 departments, report directly to senior leadership, and maintain operational efficiency across the board. It was the kind of position he'd assumed would take another decade to reach, if ever. The flexible scheduling was the real miracle. He could adjust his hours as needed for Lily's school events, doctor appointments, parent-teacher conferences. He didn't have to beg Janet for time off anymore or pretend his daughter didn't exist during work hours. It felt too good to be true. Monday morning, Marcus was making coffee in the break room, different break room, executive floor this time, when someone cleared their throat behind him. He turned and found Vivian Cole standing in the doorway. She looked exactly the same as always. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect mask of professional detachment. No sign of the woman who'd cried by the window last week. "Marcus," she said, "do you have a moment?" "Of course, Ms. Cole." She gestured for him to follow. They walked down the hall in silence, her heels clicking against the polished floor with mechanical precision. She led him to her office suite, massive corner office with a view of the entire city, the kind of space that probably cost more per square foot than his apartment's monthly rent. She closed the door and turned to face him. "Thank you for accepting the promotion," she said. "Thank you for offering it. Honestly, I'm not sure why you did. Your performance reviews have been adequate. Adequate isn't usually promotion material. You work hard. You care about the details. You show up." She paused. "That matters more than most people realize." Marcus studied her face, looking for some sign of what she was really thinking. "Is this about what I said in the break room?" "This is about your qualifications for the position. Ms. Cole, Vivian." The correction was quiet but firm. "When it's just us, you can call me Vivian." That felt like crossing a line he didn't fully understand. "Okay, Vivian, why did you really promote me?" She walked to the window and stood there with her arms crossed, looking out at the city the same way she'd looked at the park last week, searching for something she couldn't name. "You have a daughter," she said. "Lily, she's 7. You raise her alone." It wasn't a question, but Marcus answered anyway. "Her mother left when she was 18 months old. Haven't heard from her since." "That must be difficult." "We manage." Vivian nodded slowly. "The flexible scheduling is important. Children need their parents present, not just physically but mentally. You can't be mentally present if you're constantly worried about whether you'll make pickup on time or whether asking for an afternoon off will cost you your job." "You sound like you know something about that." "I know a lot about absent parents." She turned to face him. "I also know what it looks like when someone is trying very hard to be present despite impossible circumstances. You do that every day, I've noticed." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. "You've noticed me?" "I notice everyone in my company." "You knew my name last week?" "I know all my employees' names." "That's not true." "It's true for the ones who matter." She held his gaze. "You asked me a question last week that no one else has asked me in a very long time. Whether you were okay. Whether I deserved to be happy." She smiled, but it was sad. "The answer is complicated." "Most things are." They stood there in her enormous office with sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and Marcus realized he was having an actual conversation with Vivian Cole. Not a professional exchange, not a business discussion. A real conversation where she was talking to him like he was a person instead of an employee ID number. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "That depends on the question." "Why were you crying?" Vivian's expression shifted. For just a second, the mask slipped, and Marcus saw the loneliness underneath. The kind that had probably been there so long she didn't even notice it anymore. "Because I spend 16 hours a day building something that matters to everyone except me," she said quietly. "Because I'm 30 years old, and the last time someone touched me with any kind of genuine affection was, I can't remember. Can't, because I watch people live normal lives, and I wonder if I gave up something essential when I decided to be successful instead of happy." The honesty hit Marcus like a physical force. "I shouldn't have said that," Vivian added quickly. "That was inappropriate." "No, it was human." She looked at him like she wasn't sure what to do with that response. Marcus took a chance. "When's the last time you did something just for yourself? Not for work, not for business, just something that made you happy?" "I don't remember." "That's a problem. It's not your concern. Maybe it should be someone's concern." Vivian's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and the professional mask slammed back into place. "I have a meeting in 5 minutes. Thank you for your time, Marcus." "Vivian, that's all." She was dismissing him. Back to business. Back to the walls she'd built so carefully around herself. Marcus walked to the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I think you're wrong. About what? About not deserving to be happy. Everyone deserves that. Even CEOs. He left before she could respond. The next 2 weeks were strange. Marcus settled into his new role, which was challenging but manageable. The teams he supervised were competent, the work was interesting enough, and the paycheck made everything in his life feel slightly less desperate. He could buy Lily new shoes without checking his account balance first. He could get groceries without calculating every item. He could breathe a little easier. But something else was happening. Vivian kept showing up. Not obviously, not in ways that drew attention, but Marcus would be grabbing lunch in the cafeteria, and she'd be there too, sitting alone with her tablet, and she'd nod at him across the room. Or he'd be leaving late and run into her in the parking garage, and she'd make small talk about the weather before her driver pulled up. Small moments. Brief exchanges. But they kept happening. Then one Thursday evening, Marcus was working late because one of his team members had screwed up a major inventory report, and he needed to fix it before the morning meeting. Everyone else had gone home. The office was quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the occasional ping of his email. He heard footsteps and looked up to find Vivian standing at his office door. "Burning the midnight oil?" she asked. Marcus gestured at his computer screen. "Damage control." Tom reversed 2 columns in the quarterly report, and now nothing makes sense. Tom from logistics? That's the one. He does that a lot. I've noticed. Vivian stepped into his office. She was still wearing her suit from earlier, but her jacket was gone and her hair was slightly looser. Small signs of humanness creeping through the professional facade. "You should go home," she said. "Your daughter probably misses you. Lily's at my neighbor's place. Mrs. Chen watches her when I work late. They're probably making dumplings and watching cartoons. That sounds nice." "It is. Mrs. Chen's a lifesaver." Vivian sat down in the chair across from his desk, just sat there without asking permission or explaining why. Marcus wasn't sure what to do with that. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. "Sure." "How do you do it?" "Do what?" "Balance everything. Work, parenting, life. How do you make it work?" Marcus laughed. "I don't. I barely keep my head above water most days. I'm just really good at pretending I have my shit together." "You seem like you have it together." "That's the performance. Behind the scenes, it's chaos and lucky guesses." "But you're happy." Marcus thought about that. "Yeah, I am. Not all the time. Not when I'm eating ramen for the 4th night in a row or when Lily's sick and I can't afford to miss work. But overall, yeah. I've got a kid who loves me and a life that matters to someone. That's enough." "That's enough," Vivian repeated like she was testing the words. "What about you?" Marcus asked. "What makes you happy? Closing deals, quarterly earnings, beating projections." "That's work. I asked about happiness. Work is what I have." "That's depressing." "It's realistic." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "You know what Lily asked me last week? She asked if I ever get lonely. 7 years old, and she's already picking up on that stuff." "What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth. Sometimes I do, but then I remember I've got her. And that's better than having a bunch of people around who don't really matter." Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "I'm lonely all the time," she finally said. "I'm surrounded by people constantly, and I'm still lonely. Because they're not really with you. They're with your position, your money, your power. Not you." "How do you know that?" "Because I see the way people act around you. Like you're some kind of untouchable deity instead of a person." "Maybe that's what I am." "Bullshit. You're a person who's really good at pretending not to be." Vivian looked at him with something that might have been surprise or might have been relief. "You're very direct." "I don't have time for games. Life's too short." "Is that why you said what you said in the break room? About me deserving happiness?" "I said it because it's true." Marcus met her eyes. "You're allowed to want things that aren't on a spreadsheet, Vivian." "Like what?" "Like coffee with someone who doesn't work for you. Like conversations that aren't about business. Like being seen as something other than a walking bank account." "That sounds complicated." "Most worthwhile things are." She stood up, and Marcus thought she was leaving. Thought he'd pushed too far and she was about to retreat back into her fortress of professionalism. Instead, she said, "Would you like to get coffee sometime? Not here, not as your boss, just as people." Marcus's brain short-circuited for a second. "Are you asking me on a date?" "I'm asking if you'd like to get coffee." "That sounds like a date." "Does that bother you?" "No, it surprises me." "Why?" "Because you could have coffee with anyone, literally anyone in the world, and you're asking the guy who dropped a cup in the break room." Vivian smiled. Actually smiled, and it transformed her entire face. "Maybe I want coffee with someone who sees me instead of my bank account." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, something dangerous and exciting and probably incredibly stupid. "Saturday afternoon?" he said. "I can get Mrs. Chen to watch Lily." "Saturday works." "There's a place on 5th Street. Nothing fancy, but the coffee's good." "That sounds perfect." She left after that, and Marcus sat alone in his office staring at his computer screen without seeing anything on it. His brain was simultaneously racing and completely blank. He was going on a date with Vivian Cole, his boss, the CEO, the woman worth billions. This was either the best decision he'd ever made or the worst. Probably both. Saturday arrived with the kind of nervous energy Marcus hadn't felt since high school. He changed his shirt 3 times before settling on something casual, but not too casual. A button-down that Lily said made him look fancy, but not weird. "Where are you going?" she asked while he checked his reflection in the bathroom mirror. "Just meeting someone for coffee." "Is it a lady?" Marcus paused. "Yeah, it's a lady." Lily's eyes went wide. "Like a date? Just coffee." "That's a date. Emma's mom goes on dates, and she always says it's just coffee, but then she comes home all smiley." "When did you become an expert on dating?" "I'm 7. I know things." Marcus knelt down and ruffled her hair. "I'll be back in a couple hours. Be good for Mrs. Chen, okay?" "Will you be smiley when you come home?" "I don't know, Bug. Maybe." "I hope so. You should be smiley more." She hugged him, and Marcus felt his chest tighten. His daughter wanted him to be happy. She was 7 years old and already carrying that weight. Mrs. Chen arrived right on time. A tiny, energetic woman in her 60s who'd lived next door since before Lily was born. She took one look at Marcus's outfit and grinned. "You clean up nice," she said. "Must be some special coffee." "Just a friend." "Mm-hmm. Just a friend who makes you change your shirt 3 times." "Lily told you that?" "Lily tells me everything." Marcus grabbed his jacket. "I won't be late." "Take your time. We're making spring rolls tonight. Lily's already covered in flour." He could hear his daughter laughing in the kitchen. The sound made him smile despite his nerves. The coffee shop on 5th Street was one of those independently owned places that hipsters loved, and corporations hadn't destroyed yet. Exposed brick, mismatched furniture, art from local painters on the walls. Marcus arrived 10 minutes early and ordered a black coffee, then sat at a table by the window and tried to pretend his heart wasn't racing. Vivian walked in at exactly 3 o'clock. She wasn't wearing a suit. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. She wore jeans, actual jeans, and a simple sweater that probably still cost more than his monthly rent, but at least looked human. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders in dark waves. She looked younger without the armor of corporate professionalism. She looked terrified. "Hi," she said, stopping at his table like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to sit. "Hi, you want anything? My treat." "I can pay for my own coffee." "I know you can, but I invited you, so I'm buying." "Technically, I invited you." "Then we'll split it." She smiled, that same rare smile that made her look like a completely different person. "Okay, compromise. I'll have a cappuccino." Marcus went to the counter and ordered while Vivian sat down. His hands were shaking slightly. This was insane. He was on a date with a billionaire, in a coffee shop where the most expensive item was $6. He brought the drinks back and sat across from her. "Thanks," Vivian said, wrapping her hands around the cup. "No problem." They sat in silence for approximately 10 years. Finally, Marcus laughed. "This is incredibly awkward." "Extremely awkward," Vivian agreed. "I haven't been on a date in 4 years." 4 years? "I've been busy building an empire." "Right. The Empire. What about you? Dating as a single dad is complicated. Most people run when they find out I have a kid. That's their loss. That's what I tell myself. Marcus took a sip of coffee. So, what do we talk about? I have no idea. Usually I talk about work. We're not talking about work. Then I'm out of material. Favorite movie? Vivian blinked. What? Favorite movie? Simple question. I don't watch movies. Ever? I don't have time. Okay, that's depressing. We're fixing that. How? We're going to watch a movie. Right now? Eventually, but first you have to tell me something about yourself that isn't related to business. Vivian looked genuinely stumped. I don't know what to say. Anything. What did you want to be when you were a kid? A ballerina. Marcus smiled. Really? I was 7 and obsessed with the Nutcracker. I made my parents take me to classes for 6 months before I realized I had no talent for it. What happened? I quit and started learning to code instead. Because that's a normal transition. I was never a normal kid. I'm starting to see that. They talked for 3 hours. About nothing important, about everything important. About Vivian's childhood with distant parents who cared more about status than connection. About Marcus's college dreams that died when Lily's mother got pregnant and disappeared, leaving him with a baby and no plan. About loneliness and ambition and fear and hope and all the messy, complicated feelings that didn't fit on quarterly reports. Vivian laughed. Actually laughed, loud and unguarded, when Marcus told her about the time Lily tried to give their goldfish a bath in the kitchen sink. Marcus watched her face light up and realized she was beautiful. Not in the cold, perfect way she looked in business magazines. Actually beautiful, with laugh lines and expressions and humanity showing through. I should go, Vivian finally said, glancing at her phone. I have a dinner thing at 7. Business dinner? Always business. You could skip it. I could, but I won't. They walked outside together. The sun was starting to set, painting the street in orange and gold. Vivian's car was parked nearby, some sleek black thing that cost more than Marcus would make in 5 years. She stopped before getting in. Thank you for today. Thank you for coming. I meant what I said before, about you being direct. I need that. And I meant what I said about you deserving happiness. I'm starting to believe you might be right. She got in her car and drove away, and Marcus stood on the sidewalk feeling like someone had rearranged his internal organs. He went home to find Lily and Mrs. Chen covered in flour and spring rolls. You're smiley, Lily announced immediately. Am I? Super smiley. Was the coffee good? Yeah, Bug. The coffee was really good. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I had a good time today. Would you like to do it again? He saved the number as Vivian and typed back, Yeah, I would. Her response came immediately, Good. Because I'm terrible at this and I need the practice. Marcus smiled at his phone like an idiot. You're doing fine. Am I? You showed up. That's the hardest part. There was a long pause before her next message. Thank you for seeing me. Not the CEO. Me. That's the only version worth seeing. Another pause. Good night, Marcus. Good night, Vivian. He fell asleep that night thinking about coffee and laughter and a woman who'd spent so long being untouchable that she'd forgotten how to be touched. And somewhere across the city, in a penthouse apartment overlooking the lights, Vivian Cole lay awake thinking about a man who'd broken her cup and somehow, accidentally, broken through every wall she'd built to keep the world at a safe distance. Neither of them knew what came next. But for the first time in a long time, both of them wanted to find out. Their second date happened 3 days later at a bookstore Vivian had never been to, even though it was only 6 blocks from her office. Marcus met her outside at 7 p.m. after she'd finished a board meeting that ran 2 hours over schedule. Sorry I'm late, she said, slightly breathless. The CFO had opinions about our expansion strategy. Did you win the argument? I always win the argument. That tracks. The bookstore was one of those rare independent places that still existed despite Amazon's best efforts to kill it. Narrow aisles packed with books, a cat sleeping on the front counter, the smell of old paper and possibility. Vivian looked around like she'd stepped into a foreign country. When's the last time you were in a bookstore? Marcus asked. I don't remember. I have people who send me books. You have people who send you books. For professional development, business strategy, market analysis, leadership frameworks. That sounds incredibly boring. It is. Vivian ran her fingers along a shelf of fiction. What do you read? Whatever Lily's into. Right now it's this series about dragons who solve mysteries. They're actually pretty good. Dragons who solve mysteries. Don't knock it, the plot twists are solid. They wandered through the stacks, and Marcus watched Vivian gradually relax. Her shoulders dropped. Her expression softened. She picked up random books and read the back covers with genuine curiosity, instead of the calculating assessment she probably applied to everything else in her life. You should get that one, Marcus said when she lingered on a thriller about an art heist. I don't have time to read fiction. Make time. It's not that simple. It is, actually. You just decide it matters, and then you do it. Vivian looked at him. You make everything sound easy. I make everything sound possible. There's a difference. She bought the book, also a cookbook, a poetry collection, and a graphic novel that Marcus recommended. The cashier, a college kid with blue hair and multiple piercings, didn't recognize her, didn't treat her like a CEO or a billionaire, just rang up her purchases and told her to have a nice night. Vivian looked stunned. What? Marcus asked when they were back outside. Nothing. That was normal. Yeah, that's kind of the point. They grabbed dinner at a Thai place down the street. Nothing fancy, just good food and cheap beer and conversation that flowed easier than it had any right to. Vivian talked about growing up with parents who only cared about appearances, about building her company from nothing because she needed to prove something to herself, about the moment she realized she'd traded her entire personal life for professional success and couldn't figure out how to get it back. Marcus talked about Lily's mother leaving, about the terror of becoming a single parent at 24, about learning to braid hair from YouTube videos and burning dinner more times than he could count. You're a good father, Vivian said quietly. I'm a barely adequate father who's making it up as I go. That still makes you good. You show up, you try. A lot of people don't even do that. Your parents didn't show up much, did they? They showed up to events, galas, fundraisers, anything that made them look good. But actual parenting? No. I raised myself mostly. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was impulsive, probably too much too soon, but Vivian didn't pull away. She looked down at their joined hands like she was trying to memorize what it felt like. You deserve better, he said. We all deserve better than what we get. Maybe, but that doesn't mean we stop trying for better. Vivian's phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then started ringing. She glanced at the screen and sighed. I need to take this. It's Tokyo. It's 10 p.m. Business doesn't sleep. She stepped outside to take the call. Marcus watched her through the window, saw her shift back into CEO mode. Shoulders straight, expression hard, every gesture precise and controlled. The transformation was instant and complete. She came back 5 minutes later looking exhausted. Everything okay? Marcus asked. A deal is falling apart. I need to fly out tomorrow to fix it. How long will you be gone? 4 days? Maybe 5? That's a lot of time zones. It's what I do. She sat down but didn't touch her food. I'm sorry. This is exactly what I was talking about. Work always comes first. Does it have to? Yes. If I want to keep what I've built, yes. Marcus studied her face. What if you didn't? Didn't what? Keep what you've built. What if you just let some of it go? That's not how it works. Why not? Because I've spent my entire adult life building this company. It's who I am. No, it's what you do. There's a difference. Vivian looked at him like he'd suggested she burn down her office building. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. If I'm not the CEO of a billion-dollar company, then what am I? Just another person who had potential and wasted it? Someone who gave up because things got hard? You'd be someone who decided her life was worth more than her net worth. Easy for you to say. Marcus felt the sting of that. You're right. It is easy for me to say. I don't have billions to lose. But I do know what it's like to choose between what you want and what you think you're supposed to want. And what did you choose? Lily, every time. Even when it meant giving up everything else. That's different. She's your daughter. And you're a person who deserves to be happy. Same principle. Vivian's phone buzzed again. She ignored it this time. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. How to be someone who wants things that aren't on a spreadsheet. You learn, same way you learned everything else. And if I fail, then you fail. At least you tried. She looked at him for a long moment. You're very optimistic for someone who eats ramen 4 nights a week. Akche, past tense. Thanks to your promotion, I can afford actual groceries now. That made her smile. You're welcome. They finished dinner and walked back to where they'd parked. The night was cool, the city quiet in that brief window between rush hour and late-night chaos. Vivian's car was in one direction, Marcus's in the other. I'll text you from Tokyo, she said. You better. I want to hear about whatever business emergency requires international travel. It's actually incredibly boring. Then tell me about the flight. Tell me what the city looks like. Tell me anything. Why? Because I want to know what your life is like when you're not here. Vivian stepped closer. They were standing under a streetlight, and Marcus could see every detail of her face. The uncertainty, the longing, the fear that she was doing something irreversible. Can I kiss you? She asked. Marcus's brain stuttered. Yes, definitely yes. She kissed him, soft and tentative, like she was testing whether this was allowed. Marcus kissed her back, one hand coming up to cup her face, and felt her relax into it. She tasted like Thai basil and possibility. When they pulled apart, Vivian was looking at him like she'd just discovered something she didn't know existed. I should go, she whispered. You should. I don't want to. I know. This is terrifying. Yeah, it really is. She kissed him again, harder this time, then pulled away and walked to her car before she could change her mind. Marcus stood on the sidewalk and watched her drive away, his heart doing things that were probably medically inadvisable. He drove home in a daze. Mrs. Chen was watching some Korean drama when he walked in, and she took one look at his face and grinned. Good coffee again? She asked. Great coffee. You're in trouble, Marcus Hale. I know. The good kind or the bad kind? I have no idea. Lily was asleep in her room, sprawled across her bed with a dragon book on her chest. Marcus moved the book, tucked her in, and sat there for a while just watching her breathe. His daughter, his entire world. The reason he got up every morning and kept fighting. He'd built a good life for them. Small but good. Safe but good. And now Vivian was offering something that could either make it better or burn it all down. His phone buzzed. I'm home. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for coming. I'm bad at this. You keep saying that because it's true. You're better at it than you think. A pause, then, I'm scared. Marcus stared at his phone for a long time before typing back. Me too. But I think it's worth being scared for. Why? Because you make me feel like maybe I'm allowed to want something just for me. Not for Lily, not for anyone else. Just for me. That's selfish. That's human. Another long pause. Good night, Marcus. Good night, Vivian. Text me from Tokyo. I will. She kept her promise. Marcus got texts from the airport, from the plane, from her hotel in Tokyo at 3 a.m. his time when she couldn't sleep. Photos of the city at night, complaints about jet lag, random observations about business culture and cultural differences. He texted back every time, sent her photos of Lily making pancakes, of the sunrise from his apartment window, of the terrible traffic on his commute. Small pieces of his life that probably seemed mundane compared to international travel and billion-dollar deals. But Vivian responded to every single one like they mattered. Lily's pancakes look better than the breakfast at this hotel. Tell her I said she's hired. She says she charges $1 million per pancake. Negotiable? She's 7. She doesn't negotiate. I respect that. The text continued for 4 days. Conversations that started about nothing and went everywhere. Marcus learned that Vivian was terrified of spiders, loved thunderstorms, and had a secret obsession with cooking shows despite never cooking. Vivian learned that Marcus couldn't carry a tune to save his life, had a scar on his left hand from a skateboarding accident when he was 12, and could quote entire episodes of the Dragon Detective show because Lily made him read it to her every night. On the 5th day, Vivian called him at midnight her time. "Hey," Marcus answered, sitting up in bed. "Isn't it like 3 p.m. there?" I couldn't wait. Her voice sounded different, tired but excited. "The deal closed. We're expanding into 3 new markets." "That's great, congratulations." "Yeah." A pause. "I'm coming home tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "I moved my flight up. I'm done here." Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. "You're coming home early because you want to?" "I'm coming home early because I miss you." She said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. "Is that insane? We've been on 2 dates, and I miss you. If you're insane, then I'm insane too." "What time does Lily get out of school Friday?" 3:30. "Why?" "I want to meet her." Marcus's heart stopped. "You want to meet my daughter?" "If that's okay. If it's too soon, I understand, but I want to meet the person who matters most to you." "Vivian, are you sure? Meeting the kid that's a big step." "I know, but I think about you constantly, and I haven't felt this way about anyone in years, and I'm tired of pretending this is casual when it's not." Marcus sat there in his dark bedroom, phone pressed to his ear, and tried to process what was happening. A billionaire CEO was telling him she missed him, was asking to meet his daughter, was treating this like something real instead of some weird experiment and slumming it with normal people. "Okay," he said. "Friday. I'll pick Lily up from school and we can meet somewhere." "The park near your office? The one where you were crying?" "Yeah, that one." "That feels significant." "It is." They hung up after Vivian promised to text when she landed. Marcus lay awake for another hour, staring at his ceiling, wondering if he was making a huge mistake or the best decision of his life. Probably both. He told Lily about Vivian the next morning over breakfast. "So I want you to meet someone," he said carefully. "A friend of mine." Lily looked up from her cereal. "The coffee lady? How do you know about the coffee lady?" "Mrs. Chen told me you've been smiley and texting someone, and that means there's a lady." "Mrs. Chen talks too much." "Is she nice?" "Very nice." "Is she pretty?" "Yes." "Do you like her a lot?" Marcus put down his coffee. "Yeah, Bug. I like her a lot." Lily studied him with those serious 7-year-old eyes that saw way too much. "Are you going to marry her?" "Whoa, we just started dating. But do you want to?" I don't know. Maybe. Someday." "Okay." Lily went back to her cereal like they'd just discussed the weather. "I'll meet her." "Just like that?" "If you like her a lot, then she's probably okay. You might not like her." "Then I'll tell you." "Please be nice when you tell me." "I'm always nice." "You told Mrs. Chen her haircut made her look like a mushroom." "It did, but I said it was a cute mushroom." Marcus laughed. "Okay. Friday after school, park near my office. Can I wear my dinosaur shirt?" "You can wear whatever you want." "Good. Because the dinosaur shirt is awesome, and if she doesn't like it, then she's wrong." Friday arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made Marcus change his shirt twice and check his watch every 5 minutes. He picked Lily up from school at 3:30, and she was indeed wearing her dinosaur shirt, a bright green thing with a T-Rex that said, "I'm roarsome." They drove to the park in Marcus's beat-up Honda. Lily chattered about her day, about how Emma got in trouble for talking during quiet time, about the substitute teacher who couldn't pronounce anyone's name correctly. Normal kid stuff that helped Marcus feel slightly less like he was about to have a heart attack. Vivian was waiting on a bench near the pond. She was wearing jeans again and a light jacket, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked young and nervous and nothing like the woman who ran board meetings. She stood up when she saw them. Marcus took Lily's hand. "Ready?" "Yep." They walked over together. Vivian's eyes went to Lily immediately, and something in her expression softened. "Hi," Vivian said, and her voice was gentle in a way Marcus had never heard before. "You must be Lily." Lily stared at her, just full-on stared, taking in every detail with the brutal assessment only children can pull off. "You're really pretty," Lily finally said. Vivian blinked. "Thank you. I like your shirt." It's a T-Rex. Do you like dinosaurs? I don't know much about them. That's sad. Dinosaurs are awesome. The T-Rex had tiny arms but really big teeth, and it was the apex predator, which means nothing could eat it. That sounds scary. It's cool, not scary. Lily paused. Are you Dad's girlfriend? Marcus choked on air. Lily, it's okay, Vivian said quickly. She looked at Lily seriously. I'm your dad's friend right now, maybe girlfriend later. We're still figuring it out. Okay? Do you like him? Very much. He's a good dad. I know he is. And he makes terrible pancakes, but I don't tell him because it makes him sad. Lily, Marcus protested. Vivian was smiling, actually smiling, and it was the most genuine expression Marcus had ever seen on her face. What else should I know about your dad? Vivian asked. He sings in the shower really loud and it's bad. And he cries at sad movies but pretends he doesn't. And he works really hard so I can have stuff. But sometimes he's tired. And I know it's because of me. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Vivian knelt down so she was eye level with Lily. It's not because of you. It's for you. There's a difference. That's what he says. He's right. Lily studied Vivian for another long moment. Then she asked the question Marcus had been dreading. Are you going to be my new mom? The world stopped. Vivian didn't flinch, didn't panic, didn't retreat. She just looked at this 7-year-old girl who'd asked the most complicated question possible and answered with complete honesty. I don't know, Vivian said gently. That's a really big thing, and we'd have to take a lot of time to figure it out. But I care about your dad a lot, and if we keep seeing each other, then I'd care about you too. Is that okay? Lily nodded slowly. Can we feed the ducks? Just like that, the moment passed. They walked to the pond together, and Vivian bought bread from a vendor while Lily explained the hierarchy of the duck population in excruciating detail. Vivian listened like it was the most important business presentation she'd ever heard. Marcus watched them together, his daughter and this woman who'd somehow crashed into his life, and felt something slot into place. Something that felt like hope, mixed with terror, mixed with the kind of happiness he hadn't let himself feel in years. After the ducks, they got ice cream. Lily got chocolate with sprinkles. Vivian got vanilla. Marcus got strawberry, and Lily informed him it was a grandpa flavor. I'm 32, Marcus protested. Grandpa flavor? Lily repeated. Vivian laughed so hard she nearly dropped her cone. They sat on a bench while Lily ran around the playground. Vivian's leg was pressed against Marcus's, and he could feel the warmth of her even through their jeans. She's incredible, Vivian said quietly. She's a handful. She's smart and funny and honest. You did a good job. I'm still doing the job. It's not finished. You know what I mean. Marcus watched Lily climb the jungle gym with fearless determination. She likes you. How can you tell? She asked about your dinosaur knowledge. That's the test. If she's asking you about dinosaurs, you're in. I failed the test. I don't know anything about dinosaurs. She'll teach you. That's even better. Vivian leaned her head on his shoulder. The gesture was small but significant, and Marcus felt his heart do that thing again where it forgot how to beat normally. Thank you for this, Vivian said. For what? For letting me into your life. Your real life, not just the parts that fit into coffee dates. Thank you for wanting in. They sat there while the sun started to set, painting the sky orange and pink. Lily eventually ran back, out of breath and demanding they go on the swings together. Vivian pushed her while Marcus watched, and the sound of his daughter's laughter mixed with Vivian's voice saying, "Higher!" And it all felt so normal and so impossible at the same time. Later, after they'd said goodbye and driven home, Lily was quiet in the car. You okay, Bug? Marcus asked. I like her. Yeah? She's nice, and she didn't talk to me like I'm a baby. She's pretty great. Are you going to keep seeing her? If she'll have me? She will. She looks at you the same way you look at pancakes. Marcus laughed. What does that mean? Like you really want it, even though you know it might not be good for you. When did you get so smart? I was born smart. You just didn't notice. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus's phone buzzed. She's perfect. You're perfect. Today was perfect. Nothing's perfect. But it was pretty great. I don't want to mess this up. Then don't. What if I do anyway? Then we'll figure it out. There was a long pause before her next text. I'm falling for you, both of you, and it terrifies me. Marcus stared at his phone, heart pounding. I'm falling for you too. And yeah, it's terrifying. What do? We keep going. We see where it leads, and if it leads somewhere that doesn't work, then at least we tried. Another pause. I've never tried before. Not like this. First time for everything. Will you be patient with me? I'm going to mess up. I'm going to prioritize work when I shouldn't. I'm going to forget how to be a normal person. I'll be patient if you'll be patient with me. I'm going to be a mess sometimes. I'm going to put Lily first always. I'm going to have days where I can barely keep my head above water. Deal. Deal. Marcus, yeah? I'm really glad you dropped that coffee cup. Marcus smiled at his phone. Me too. He fell asleep that night thinking about the park and the ducks and the way Vivian had knelt down to talk to his daughter like she mattered, like they both mattered. And across the city, Vivian lay awake in her enormous empty penthouse, thinking about a man with kind eyes and a daughter with a dinosaur shirt and the terrifying possibility that she might actually get to keep this, that she might actually get to be happy. The thought was more frightening than any business deal she'd ever closed. But for the first time in her life, Vivian Cole was willing to be afraid if it meant getting to be something other than alone. The first time Vivian came over for dinner, she brought wine that cost more than Marcus's monthly grocery budget and looked absolutely terrified standing in his apartment doorway. Is this okay? She asked, holding up the bottle like she wasn't sure what to do with it. I didn't know what you liked, so I just grabbed something from my collection. Marcus looked at the label and tried not to laugh. Vivian, this is a $2,000 bottle of wine. Is it? I don't really pay attention to prices. Of course you don't. He took the bottle and set it on the counter. Come in. Fair warning, the place is small, and Lily's been asking questions about you nonstop for 3 days. What kind of questions? Whether you know how to play video games, whether you like pepperoni or cheese pizza, whether you're secretly a superhero. What did you tell her? That I'd find out and report back. Vivian stepped inside, and Marcus watched her take in his apartment with those sharp CEO eyes. It wasn't much. Cramped living room with a couch that had seen better days, tiny kitchen with appliances from the 90s, narrow hallway leading to 2 bedrooms barely big enough for their beds. Everything was clean but worn, lived in, marked by the reality of raising a kid on a tight budget. It's nice, Vivian said. You're a terrible liar. No, I mean it. It feels like a home. As opposed to what? As opposed to a magazine spread that nobody actually lives in. Lily appeared in the hallway wearing her second favorite dinosaur shirt, this one with a velociraptor that said, "Clever girl." She studied Vivian with that same intense scrutiny from the park. Hi, Lily said. Hi, Vivian replied. I like your shirt. It's from Jurassic Park. Have you seen it? I haven't. That's a problem. Dad, we need to fix this. Marcus grinned. Add it to the list. What list? Vivian asked. The list of movies you need to watch. We're up to 7 now. I don't have time to watch 7 movies. Lily crossed her arms. Do you have time to have fun? Vivian blinked. That's a very good question. Dad says if you don't make time for fun, then you turn into a grumpy grown-up. Are you a grumpy grown-up? Sometimes. Then you need more fun. Marcus tried not to laugh at the expression on Vivian's face, somewhere between amused and completely out of her depth. They ordered pizza because Marcus had planned to cook, but then work ran late and he'd barely made it home in time. Vivian sat on the floor with Lily and listened to a 20-minute explanation of why velociraptors were actually smaller than the movies showed, but were still the coolest dinosaurs because they hunted in packs and were super smart. So they were like the Navy SEALs of dinosaurs? Vivian asked. Lily's eyes went wide. Yes, exactly that. I can work with that analogy. They ate pizza straight from the box while watching Jurassic Park on Marcus's ancient TV. Lily sat between them on the couch, providing commentary on every scene, correcting scientific inaccuracies with the confidence of someone who'd read every dinosaur book in the public library. Marcus glanced at Vivian during the T-Rex scene and saw her watching Lily instead of the screen, smiling softly at his daughter's enthusiasm. Something in his chest twisted. Halfway through the movie, Lily fell asleep with her head on Vivian's lap. She does this, Marcus whispered, gets super invested in something, and then crashes hard. Should I move her? Nah, let her sleep for a bit. They sat there in the flickering light of the TV, Lily breathing softly between them. Vivian's hand was resting on Lily's shoulder, and Marcus wondered if she even realized she was doing it. This is nice, Vivian said quietly. Falling asleep during a dinosaur movie? Being here, with you, with her, feeling like I'm part of something instead of just observing it. Marcus reached over and took her free hand. You are part of it. Am I? Or am I just visiting? That's up to you. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. I have a shareholder meeting in London next week. 3 days of presentations and negotiations. Okay? I'll miss your birthday. Marcus had forgotten his own birthday was coming up. It's fine. I don't usually do anything special anyway. That's depressing. That's reality. What if I didn't go? To London? What if I sent my COO instead? Let him handle the meeting. Marcus stared at her. You're not serious. Why not? Because it's a shareholder meeting. Those are important. So is this. She gestured between them. So are you. Vivian, I'm not asking you to skip work for my birthday. I know, I'm offering. That's insane. Probably. She looked down at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. But I'm tired of choosing work over everything else. I'm tired of missing things that matter. One meeting isn't going to destroy your company. I know, but it feels like if I start choosing differently, everything will fall apart. Or maybe everything will finally come together. Vivian met his eyes. You really believe that? I believe you're allowed to want both, success and happiness. They're not mutually exclusive. They have been for me. Because you made them that way. You can unmake it too. She squeezed his hand. What if I'm bad at this? At being present, at being part of someone's life? Then you practice until you get better. That simple? That hard? Vivian smiled. You're annoyingly optimistic. You're annoyingly pessimistic. We balance each other out. They finished the movie in comfortable silence. When the credits rolled, Marcus carefully picked up Lily and carried her to bed. She mumbled something about velociraptors and burrowed under her blankets without fully waking up. When he came back to the living room, Vivian was standing by the window looking out at the city lights. I'm going to cancel the London trip, she said. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. She turned to face him. I want to be here for your birthday. I want to stop making excuses for why work comes first. Marcus crossed the room and pulled her into a hug. She fit against him perfectly, her head tucked under his chin, her arms wrapped around his waist. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For trying. I'm terrified I'm going to screw this up. Then we'll be terrified together. She pulled back just enough to kiss him. It was slow and deep and tasted like possibility. Marcus's hands found her hair, and Vivian made a small sound that went straight to his spine. I should go, she murmured against his lips. You should. I don't want to. I know. This is torture. Yeah. She kissed him again, harder this time, then forced herself to step back. If I stay, I'm going to want things we're not ready for. Who says we're not ready? We've been dating for 3 weeks, Marcus. Feels longer. In a good way or a bad way? The best way. Vivian grabbed her jacket. I'll see you tomorrow. Dinner at that Italian place you mentioned? It's expensive. I got a raise, remember? From this billionaire CEO who has questionable judgment. Her judgment is excellent. That's how she became a billionaire. Her judgment in romantic partners is still under review. Vivian laughed and kissed him one more time before leaving. Marcus stood in his empty living room, grinning like an idiot, feeling like he'd somehow stumbled into someone else's life. The next few weeks blurred together in the best possible way. Vivian canceled the London trip, and her assistant nearly had a breakdown. She started leaving work at 6 instead of 9. She came to Lily's school play where his daughter played a tree in the background and delivered her one line, I am a tree, with such conviction that Vivian applauded like she was at the opera. They went to museums and bookstores and terrible action movies that Lily picked out. Vivian learned to play Mario Kart and got absurdly competitive about it. She helped Lily with a science project about plate tectonics and got so into it that they built a volcano that actually erupted in the kitchen, and Marcus spent an hour cleaning up fake lava. "You're good with her," Marcus said one night after Lily had gone to bed. They were sitting on his couch, Vivian's feet tucked under her, a half-empty wine glass in her hand. Not the expensive bottle she'd brought that first night, just regular wine from the grocery store that cost $12 and tasted fine. "I'm winging it," Vivian admitted. "I have no idea what I'm doing." "That's parenting. Nobody knows what they're doing. You seem like you know." "I'm an excellent actor." She smiled and leaned against him. "I never thought I'd want this." "What?" "A family, kids, the whole domestic thing. I always assumed it wasn't for me." "What changed?" "I met someone who made it look possible instead of suffocating." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "You know this isn't always easy, right? There are going to be bad days. Days where Lily's a nightmare and I'm exhausted and nothing goes right." "I know." "And you're still in." "I'm terrified. But yeah, I'm in." His birthday fell on a Saturday. Marcus woke up to Lily jumping on his bed yelling, "Happy birthday!" at a volume that should be illegal before 8 a.m. She'd made him a card with crayons and glitter that said, "Best Dad," in letters that took up the entire page. "You like it?" she asked, bouncing excitedly. "I love it, Bug." "Vivian's coming over later. We're going to surprise you." "You just told me about the surprise." "No, I told you there is a surprise. I didn't tell you what it is. That's different." Marcus couldn't argue with that logic. Vivian showed up at noon with bags from the grocery store and a determined expression. "We're cooking," she announced. "You don't cook." "I'm learning. Lily's teaching me." "I'm the teacher now," Lily said proudly. "We're making spaghetti and meatballs." They spent 3 hours in Marcus's tiny kitchen, making a mess that would have given a professional chef a heart attack. Flour everywhere, sauce splattered on the walls, Lily covered in cheese, Vivian's hair coming loose from its ponytail, her expensive sweater stained with tomato sauce, laughing so hard she could barely breathe when the meatballs fell apart in the pan. "This is a disaster," she said, trying to salvage the situation. "This is perfect," Marcus corrected. They ate the slightly burned, oddly shaped meatballs with spaghetti that was a little overcooked and sauce that was a little too salty. It was the best meal Marcus had eaten in years. After dinner, Lily presented him with another gift, a drawing she'd made of the three of them at the park with the ducks. Stick figures with huge smiles, a sun in the corner, "Family" written across the top in her uneven handwriting. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Lily, this is... Do you like it?" "I love it." "Can we put it on the fridge?" "Absolutely." Vivian was staring at the drawing with an expression Marcus couldn't quite read. He put Lily to bed early because she'd worn herself out with excitement. And when he came back to the living room, Vivian was still standing by the fridge looking at the picture. "She wrote family," Vivian said quietly. "Yeah. She thinks of me as family. Is that okay?" "I don't know. It's huge. It's terrifying." Marcus came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You don't have to be ready for it right now. But maybe someday?" Vivian turned in his arms. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "What if I mess this up? What if I hurt her?" "You won't. You can't know that. I know you care about her. I know you're trying. That's enough." "Is it?" "For now, yeah." She kissed him, and it tasted like desperation and hope. Marcus walked her backward toward his bedroom, and she didn't stop him. They fumbled with clothes and fell onto his bed in a tangle of limbs and want. "Are you sure?" Marcus whispered against her neck. "I've never been less sure of anything," Vivian breathed. "But I want this. I want you." They made love slowly, carefully, like they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. Afterward, Vivian lay with her head on Marcus's chest, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," she said into the darkness. Marcus's heart stopped. Started again. Did something complicated in between. "Say that again," he whispered. "I love you. I'm in love with you. Both of you." She lifted her head to look at him. "Is that okay?" "More than okay." He kissed her softly. "I love you too." She smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time in his life, Marcus felt like everything might actually work out. But reality has a way of crashing in when you least expect it. Marcus woke up to his phone ringing at 2 a.m. Vivian was still asleep beside him, and for a second he just watched her breathe before the phone rang again and jerked him back to reality. Unknown number. Hello. Marcus Hale? A woman's voice he didn't recognize. Yeah, who is this? This is Sarah Chen from St. Mary's Hospital. Your neighbor listed you as an emergency contact. Marcus sat up so fast he almost dropped the phone. Mrs. Chen? What happened? She fell and broke her hip. She's stable, but she'll need surgery in the morning. Is there any way you can come down? I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up and started grabbing clothes. Vivian stirred and opened her eyes. What's wrong? Mrs. Chen's in the hospital. I need to go. I'll come with you. You don't have to. Marcus. She was already getting dressed. I'm coming with you. They left Lily sleeping. She was safe, and Mrs. Chen's daughter was already at the hospital, so there was nothing Marcus could do except be there for the woman who'd been like a grandmother to his kid. The hospital was harsh fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell and worried faces. Mrs. Chen's daughter Jenny was in the waiting room looking exhausted. Marcus, thank you for coming. How is she? Scared, in pain, but she'll be okay. Jenny glanced at Vivian. Hi, I'm Jenny. Vivian, I'm Marcus's girlfriend. The word sounded strange and inadequate, but also exactly right. They sat in uncomfortable plastic chairs while doctors talked about procedures and recovery time and physical therapy. Mrs. Chen was 83, and surgery at that age was risky but necessary. Jenny held Marcus's hand and cried, and Vivian went to get coffee for everyone because she needed something to do with her hands. Marcus's phone buzzed, a text from his manager, Janet. Need you in early tomorrow. Big presentation at 9 a.m. He stared at the message. Tomorrow was Sunday. Tomorrow was supposed to be his day with Lily. Tomorrow was supposed to be sleeping in and pancakes and lazy mornings. Problem? Vivian asked, returning with terrible hospital coffee. Work wants me in early tomorrow. On Sunday? Apparently. Tell them no. I can't just tell them no. Why not? Because I need this job, Vivian. She set down the coffee cups. You need a job that respects your time. Most jobs don't. Then find a better job. It's not that simple. It could be. Marcus looked at her. At this woman who could buy and sell his entire apartment building without blinking, who lived in a world where saying no to Sunday work was actually an option. Not everyone has $1 billion safety net, he said quietly. Vivian flinched. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you don't understand that some of us can't just quit when things get hard. I'm not asking you to quit. You're asking me to risk my job. I'm asking you to prioritize your life over their profits. Easy for you to say when you own the profits. The words came out harsher than he intended. Vivian stepped back like he'd physically pushed her. I should go, she said. Vivian, you're stressed. You need to be here for Mrs. Chen. We'll talk later. She left before he could apologize, and Marcus sat there feeling like the worst person alive. Jenny gave him a look. You should go after her, Jenny said. I need to be here. Mom's in surgery for 4 hours. There's nothing you can do except sit here and feel guilty. Go fix whatever that was. Marcus looked at the doors Vivian had disappeared through. I'm an idiot. Yes. Now go be an idiot who apologizes. He found Vivian in the parking garage leaning against her car with tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Marcus said. That was unfair. It was true. It was mean, and I was stressed and scared, and I took it out on you. I don't understand your life, Vivian wiped her eyes. I try, but I don't. I can't, and that's a problem. You're learning. I made you feel bad for having limitations I don't have. That's not learning. That's being an asshole. Marcus laughed despite everything. You're not an asshole. I'm absolutely an asshole. I've been an asshole for years. I'm just trying to be less of one now. You're doing pretty well. Am I? Because I just told you to risk your job like it's nothing. You were trying to help. I was being dismissive of reality. She looked at him. I love you. And I love Lily. But I don't know how to exist in your world without breaking things. Then we'll figure it out together. What if we can't? Then we'll fail together. Vivian closed her eyes. I'm so scared. Of what? Of losing this, of messing this up, of being the reason everything falls apart. Marcus pulled her into his arms. She was shaking, and he realized this was the first time he'd seen her really vulnerable. Not sad, not lonely, actually scared. I'm scared too, he whispered. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe alone. That's stupid. Probably. I love you anyway. I love you too. They stood in the parking garage holding each other while the world continued spinning around them. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Janet asking if he'd seen her message. He ignored it. I'm going to tell her no, he said. You don't have to. I want to. You were right. My life matters more than their profits. He pulled back to look at her. But I need you to understand that saying no might have consequences. And if it does, I need you to be okay with that. What kind of consequences? I could get fired, demoted, put back in a position where I'm barely making ends meet. Then I'll help. I don't want your money. I'm not offering money. I'm offering partnership. We face it together, remember? Marcus kissed her. Yeah, together. They went back inside and sat with Jenny until Mrs. Chen came out of surgery, groggy but stable. The doctor said recovery would take months, and Jenny was already coordinating family care and physical therapy. Who's going to watch Lily when you're at work? Jenny asked Marcus. I'll figure something out. I can help, Vivian said quietly. If you want. Everyone looked at her. I have flexibility, Vivian continued. I can adjust my schedule, pick her up from school some days, help with homework. You do that? Marcus asked. If you trust me with her, yes. Marcus felt something in his chest crack open. Yeah, I trust you. They left the hospital as the sun was rising. Vivian drove Marcus home, and they found Lily still asleep in her bed, with her dinosaur books scattered around her. I'm going to make coffee, Vivian whispered. Marcus checked on Lily one more time, then found Vivian in his kitchen staring at the coffee maker like it was a foreign object. It's the button on the left, he said. I know, I'm just thinking. About? About how I want this. All of this. The early mornings and the hospital scares and the terrible coffee and the kid who asks impossible questions. She turned to look at him. I want to be part of your family. You already are. Really? Lily drew you into the picture. That's permanent. Vivian smiled. She did, didn't she? So I guess you're stuck with us. I guess I am. Lily woke up an hour later and found them both passed out on the couch. Vivian's head on Marcus's shoulder, his arm around her waist. She stood there studying them for a long moment before getting a blanket from her room and carefully draping it over them both. Family, she whispered, then went to watch cartoons with the volume low so they could sleep. The whispers started on a Monday. Marcus noticed them first in the elevator, two women from accounting who stopped talking the second he stepped in. Then again in the break room where a group of executives went quiet when he walked past. By lunch, his phone had 3 texts from colleagues he barely knew asking if the rumors were true. He had no idea what rumors they were talking about. Janet called him into her office at 2 p.m. She looked uncomfortable, which was never a good sign. Marcus, we need to talk about your relationship with Ms. Cole. His stomach dropped. What about it? People are talking. There are concerns about favoritism, conflicts of interest, improper conduct. We're dating. That's not improper. She's the CEO. You're her employee. That creates complications. I was promoted based on merit before we started dating. That's not how it looks. Janet slid a folder across her desk. HR needs you to fill out these disclosure forms. And there's going to be an investigation into your promotion to ensure everything was above board. Marcus stared at the folder like it might bite him. An investigation. Standard procedure for executive relationships. I'm not an executive. She is. And she gave you a significant promotion and raise. We have to verify it was justified. This is bullshit. This is policy. Janet's expression softened slightly. Look, I'm not saying you did anything wrong, but perception matters. And right now, the perception is that you're sleeping your way to the top. The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus grabbed the folder and stood up. Is that all? For now, but Marcus, be careful. The board is watching this closely. He left her office feeling sick. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of stares and whispered conversations. By the time he picked up Lily from school, his jaw hurt from clenching it so hard. Dad, you okay? Lily asked from the back seat. Fine, Bug. You look mad. Just a long day. Is it because of Vivian? Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Why would you say that? Because Emma's mom said her dad said that you and Vivian are causing problems at work. Emma's mom needs to mind her own business. That's what I told Emma. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. That's my girl. Vivian texted him around 6. Can we talk? Something happened at work. Yeah, I know. HR called me in. I'm so sorry. I didn't think they'd go after you. Meet me at my place after Lily goes to bed. I'll be there. She arrived at 9, still in her work clothes, but looking more exhausted than Marcus had ever seen her. He poured them both wine, and they sat on his couch in heavy silence. They're investigating my promotion, Marcus finally said. I know. They told me this morning. How bad is it? Bad? Vivian took a long drink. The board is concerned about liability. My lawyers are concerned about optics. HR is concerned about setting precedent. What does that mean for us? It means we have options. None of them good. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Tell me. Option 1. You resign. Take a severance package and find work elsewhere. Removes the conflict of interest. Makes the whole thing go away. I can't afford to be unemployed. I know. Option 2. I step down as CEO. Marcus almost dropped his wine glass. What? If I'm not your boss, there's no conflict. I've been thinking about it anyway. Maybe it's time. Vivian, you built that company. You can't just walk away. Why not? What's the point of having everything if I can't have the things that actually matter? Don't do this. Don't throw away everything you've worked for because of me. It wouldn't be because of you. It would be for us. That's the same thing. Vivian set down her glass and took his hands. What if it's not? What if I've been using work as an excuse to avoid living? What if stepping down is the best decision I could make? You'd resent me eventually. You don't know that. I know that you love what you do. I see it when you talk about deals and strategy and building something that matters. I won't be the reason you give that up. Then what do we do? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Option 3? There's no option 3. We fight. We prove the promotion was legitimate. We show everyone that we're serious about this and we're not backing down. That could take months, the investigation, the scrutiny, the constant judgment. So it's going to be brutal. People are going to say terrible things about both of us. Let them. Vivian looked at him like he was crazy. You're willing to go through that? Are you? I don't have a choice. I'm already the villain in this story. Cold-hearted CEO who abuses her power. I'm used to people thinking the worst of me. I'm not. Marcus squeezed her hands. But I'm willing to deal with it if it means keeping both you and my job. What about Lily? Kids at school are going to hear things. Lily's tough. She'll handle it. She's 7. She's my daughter. She's tougher than both of us combined. Vivian smiled despite the tears in her eyes. Okay. We fight. Together? Together. They sealed it with a kiss that tasted like wine and determination and the kind of stubborn hope that probably wasn't smart but felt necessary anyway. The investigation took 3 weeks and felt like 3 years. HR interviewed Marcus's entire team, pulled his performance reviews going back 5 years, analyzed every decision he'd made since his promotion. They interviewed Vivian separately, questioned her judgment, implied things that made Marcus want to punch walls. The whispers got louder. Someone started a rumor that Marcus had slept with Vivian to get promoted in the first place. Another rumor claimed she was pregnant and they were trying to hide it. A third suggested Marcus was running some kind of long con to get access to her money. None of it was true. All of it spread anyway. Lily came home crying one day because Emma told her that her dad was a gold digger and Vivian was stupid for falling for it. Is that true? Lily asked through tears. Are you with Vivian because of her money? Marcus knelt down and held his daughter's face in his hands. No, Bug. I'm with Vivian because I love her. Because she makes me happy and she's good to you and she's trying really hard to be part of our family. The money doesn't matter. Then why do people say mean things? Because people are scared of things they don't understand. And they don't understand how someone like me could be with someone like her unless there's something wrong. That's dumb. Yeah, it really is. I like Vivian. Me too. Don't let the mean people win, okay? Marcus hugged her tight. I won't. But the mean people were relentless. Marcus's car got keyed in the parking garage. Someone left a printout of his bank statements on his desk with a sticky note that said, "Nice raise." Vivian's assistant quit because she couldn't handle the gossip. The CFO suggested in a board meeting that maybe Vivian's personal life was affecting her professional judgment. Through it all, Vivian held her ground. She attended every meeting with her head high. She defended Marcus's promotion with data and metrics and undeniable results. She refused to apologize for falling in love. Marcus did the same. He showed up to work every day and did his job better than ever. His teams hit every target. His reports were flawless. He gave the investigators nothing to work with except evidence that he deserved his position. But the pressure was building. Marcus could feel it in the tension in Vivian's shoulders, in the way she stopped sleeping well, and how she started having a glass of wine every night instead of occasionally. "You need to eat something," Marcus said one evening when she came over straight from work looking pale and exhausted. "I'm not hungry." "You haven't eaten all day." "How do you know?" "Because I know you. When you're stressed, you forget to eat." Vivian sank onto his couch. "The board met today. They want to issue a formal reprimand." "For what?" "For failing to disclose our relationship earlier, for creating a hostile work environment through the appearance of favoritism, for putting the company at legal risk." "That's bullshit. That's politics." She rubbed her eyes. "They're threatening to force me out if I don't end things with you." Marcus felt the floor drop out from under him. "What?" "The chairman called me into his office, said the board has lost confidence in my judgment, that my personal life is becoming a liability, that if I don't choose the company, they'll choose for me. They can't do that. They can. I serve at the pleasure of the board. If they vote me out, I'm out. So we call their bluff." "It's not a bluff." Vivian looked at him with hollow eyes. "I've spent 15 years building this company, and they're going to take it away because I fell in love." Marcus sat down beside her and pulled her into his arms. She didn't cry, just sat there rigid and exhausted, like all the fight had finally drained out of her. "What do you want to do?" he asked quietly. "I don't know." "Yes, you do. If I choose you, I lose everything I've built. If you choose the company, you lose us. I know. So what matters more?" Vivian pulled back to look at him. "That's not fair." "Life's not fair, but you still have to choose. I don't want to choose." "I know, but you have to." She stood up and walked to the window, the same way she always did when she needed to think. Marcus watched her struggle with it, saw the CEO and the woman at war inside her head. "I should go," Vivian finally said. "You're running." "I'm thinking." "You're running." She spun around. "What do you want me to say, Marcus, that I choose you? That I'm willing to throw away everything I've worked for?" "I want you to be honest about what you want." "I want both. I want my company, and I want you, and I want Lily, and I want a life that doesn't make me choose between success and happiness." "Then take it." "It's not that simple." "It is." Marcus stood up. "You keep saying it's complicated, but it's not. They're making you choose, so choose. But don't pretend the decision is hard when you've already made it." Vivian stared at him. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're still here. You're still fighting. If you were going to choose the company, you would have done it already. You don't know that. I do, because I know you. You're scared and exhausted, and you want someone to make this decision for you. But no one can. It's yours. And what if I choose wrong? Then we deal with it together. What if I choose you and spend the rest of my life wondering what I gave up?" Marcus felt that hit deep. "Is that what you think will happen?" "I don't know, maybe." "Then maybe you should choose the company." Vivian looked like he'd slapped her. "What?" "If you're going to resent me for costing you your empire, then we should end this now. Because I can't live with being your biggest regret." That's not what I said. It's what you meant. No, it's not. She stopped, closed her eyes. I'm scared. I know. I don't know how to do this. How to want things that aren't quantifiable. How to choose something that might not work out. Marcus crossed the room and took her hands. Here's what I know. I love you. Lily loves you. We want you in our lives, but we want the real you, not some version who gave up everything she cared about and pretends to be happy about it. What if the real me can't give you what you need? What if she can? Vivian searched his face. You really believe that? I believe you're stronger than you think. I believe you can build a new life without destroying the old one. I believe you're allowed to want both, even if having both looks different than you expected. How? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. She kissed him then, desperate and searching, like she was trying to find answers in the taste of his mouth. When they pulled apart, she was crying. I'm going to quit, she whispered. Vivian, not because of you, because of me. Because I'm tired of fighting people who will never respect me for anything other than quarterly earnings. Because I want to build something new. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. What about the board? They can have the company. I'll start something else, something smaller, something that doesn't require me to sacrifice my entire life. Marcus felt his chest tighten. You'd really do that? I'd really try. She took a shaky breath. I'm terrified. But I think that means it's the right choice. When? I'll submit my resignation tomorrow. Give them 30 days to find a replacement. Use that time to figure out what comes next. And us? Us stays. If you'll have me. Always. They held each other in Marcus's small living room while the city hummed outside and Lily slept down the hall, unaware that the adults in her life were making decisions that would change everything. Vivian went home around midnight. Marcus lay awake for hours afterward, wondering if he'd just convinced the woman he loved to make a catastrophic mistake. The next morning, Vivian submitted her resignation. The news broke within hours. Every business outlet picked it up. Stock prices fluctuated. Analysts speculated. The board scrambled to control the narrative. Vivian's official statement was brief. After 15 years as CEO, she was stepping down to pursue other opportunities and spend more time on personal priorities. She thanked the board, the shareholders, and her incredible team. She wished the company continued success. She didn't mention Marcus, didn't mention love or happiness or choosing differently, but everyone knew anyway. Marcus's phone exploded with messages, some supportive, most not. Janet called him into her office again. The investigation is over, she said. Your promotion was legitimate, but given the circumstances, we think it's best if you transition to a different department. You're demoting me. We're relocating you, same salary, different reporting structure, gets you away from any appearance of favoritism. And if I say no, then we'll have to discuss other options. Marcus signed the transfer papers. What choice did he have? He had Lily to think about, bills to pay, a life to maintain. He texted Vivian the news and she called immediately. I'm sorry, she said. It's fine. It's not fine. This is exactly what I was afraid of. We'll survive it. Will we? Yes. But he wasn't sure anymore. The weight of what they'd both given up was starting to feel real. Vivian had lost her company. Marcus had lost his promotion and his reputation. And for what? A relationship that was barely 4 months old and might not survive the pressure they'd put on it. That night, Marcus sat in his apartment after Lily had gone to bed, and for the first time since this whole thing started, he let himself wonder if they'd made a terrible mistake. His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. Can I come over? It's late. I know, I need to see you. Okay. She arrived 20 minutes later, looking smaller somehow, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. She walked into his apartment and just stood there in the middle of his living room like she didn't know what to do with herself. I gave my notice, she said. 30 days and I'm done. How do you feel? Terrified, relieved, like I just jumped off a cliff and I don't know if there's water at the bottom. Marcus pulled her close. There's water, even if we can't see it yet. What if we hit rocks instead? Then we hit rocks together. She laughed, but it was shaky. You have a lot of faith in us. One of us has to. What if I can't do this? What if I need the work, the structure, the constant validation that I'm building something that matters? Then you build something new. Like what? I don't know. But you're brilliant and driven, and you'll figure it out. What if I don't want to figure it out? What if I just want to fall apart for a while? Marcus held her tighter. Then fall apart. I've got you. And she did. Right there in his living room, Vivian Cole finally stopped being the untouchable CEO and became just a woman who'd made an impossible choice and didn't know if it was the right one. She cried in a way that sounded like it came from somewhere deep and broken, and Marcus held her through all of it. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry I'm such a mess. You're not a mess. You're human. I don't know how to be human. You're doing fine. I'm falling apart on your living room floor. That's pretty human, she laughed through her tears. I love you. I love you too. Even though I just imploded my entire life? Especially because of that. They sat there on the floor until Vivian's tears ran out and she was left exhausted and hollow. Marcus made her tea. She curled up on his couch and fell asleep within minutes, like her body had finally given her permission to rest. Marcus covered her with a blanket and sat in the chair across from her, watching her breathe. Tomorrow they'd wake up and face whatever came next. But tonight, she was here. She was his. And that had to be enough. Vivian's last day at the company she'd built fell on a Thursday in October, and she spent it cleaning out her office like she was erasing evidence of a crime. Marcus offered to help, but she said no. This was something she needed to do alone. So he stayed at his new desk in his new department, operations support, which was somehow both a lateral move and a demotion, and tried not to think about what she was feeling 3 floors above him. His new manager was a guy named Derek who wore too much cologne and started every sentence with, well, actually. The work was mind-numbing. Data entry and spreadsheet maintenance and tasks that could have been automated but weren't because nobody cared enough to fix the system. It was exactly the kind of job Marcus had before his promotion, before Vivian changed everything. Hey, Hale. Derek appeared at his cubicle at 4 p.m. Need you to stay late tonight. System backup needs monitoring. I can't. I have to pick up my daughter. Get someone else to do it. That's not how parenting works. Derek's expression hardened. Well, actually, that's not how this job works either. You want the position, you make sacrifices. Marcus bit back the response he wanted to give. Something about how sacrificing time with his kid wasn't actually a sacrifice. It was just shitty parenting, and said instead, I'll see what I can do. He called Mrs. Chen's daughter Jenny, who agreed to get Lily from school. Then he spent 3 hours watching progress bars fill while Derek breathed down his neck and made comments about work ethic and commitment to the team. By the time Marcus got home, it was past 8. Lily was already in pajamas, doing homework at the kitchen table with Jenny supervising. Sorry I'm late, Bug. Lily didn't look up from her math worksheet. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Marcus could hear it in her voice. Jenny gave him a sympathetic look. She had a rough day at school. What happened? Emma's mom was doing pickup and made a comment about how Vivian destroyed her own company because she couldn't keep her personal life separate from business. Said it in front of all the kids. Marcus felt rage flood through him. She said that in front of 7-year-olds? Some people have no class. Jenny gathered her things. I'll see you tomorrow? Yeah, thanks for this. After Jenny left, Marcus sat down next to Lily. You want to talk about it? No. Bug, I said no. She threw her pencil down. I don't want to talk about how everyone thinks Vivian is stupid and you're using her and I'm going to have a broken family again because nothing ever works out. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus felt his heart crack. Lily, it's true. Mom left. And now Vivian's going to leave too because people are mean and everything is hard and I just want things to be normal. She was crying now, full ugly crying the way kids do when they've been holding it in all day. Marcus pulled her into his lap even though she was getting too big for it and held her while she sobbed. Vivian's not leaving, he said quietly. How do you know? Because she loves us, both of us. Love doesn't mean people stay. Mom loved you and she still left. Marcus didn't have an answer for that. Because Lily was right. Love didn't guarantee anything. People left all the time for reasons that made sense only to them. You're right, he finally said. I can't promise Vivian will stay forever, but I can promise she's trying really hard to make this work. And so am I. And sometimes that has to be enough. What if it's not? Then we'll be sad for a while. And then we'll be okay again. Because we always are. Lily wiped her eyes. Are you okay? With your new job? Marcus considered lying, decided against it. Not really. It's boring, and my boss is kind of a jerk. Can you get a different job? Maybe eventually, but right now I need to keep this one so we can pay rent and buy groceries. I hate that you have to work at a place that makes you sad. Yeah, me too. They sat there in the kitchen with her math homework forgotten, and Marcus wondered if he'd made the right choice. If fighting for this relationship was worth watching his daughter struggle, worth taking a job he hated, worth all the gossip and judgment and stress. His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian. All packed up, 30 days done. I'm officially unemployed. How do you feel? Lost, free, terrified. All of the above. Want to come over? Is it okay? I don't want to intrude. You're never intruding. She arrived an hour later with takeout and a bottle of wine that wasn't stupidly expensive for once. Just regular wine from the grocery store, which somehow felt more significant than all the fancy bottles she used to bring. Lily was already in bed, but not asleep. She came out when she heard Vivian's voice. You're not our boss anymore, Lily said. Vivian smiled. No, I'm not anyone's boss anymore. What are you going to do? I have no idea. That sounds scary. It really is. Lily studied her. Are you going to leave? Vivian knelt down. No, sweetie, I'm not leaving. Everyone says you're going to leave. They say Dad ruined your life and you're going to realize it and go away. Who says that? Kids at school, their parents, everyone. Vivian looked at Marcus over Lily's head. He could see the pain in her expression, the guilt. When she spoke again, her voice was gentle but firm. Your dad didn't ruin my life. He saved it. I had all this success and money and power and I was miserable. Then I met him and I remembered what it felt like to actually be happy. That's not ruining, that's the opposite. But you lost your company. I gave it up. There's a difference. And yeah, sometimes I'm scared I made the wrong choice. But then I think about having dinner with you guys and helping with homework and watching terrible dinosaur movies, and I know I made the right one. Really? Really? Lily hugged her, just threw her arms around Vivian's neck and held on tight. Vivian looked startled for a second, then hugged back with tears in her eyes. Okay, Lily whispered. You can stay. Thank you. After Marcus got Lily back to bed, for real this time, he found Vivian on the couch staring at the takeout containers like they might have answers. That was intense, she said. She's been holding that in for a while. I didn't know she was that worried. Kids are resilient until they're not. Marcus sat down next to her. How was your last day? Weird. They threw me a party I didn't want. The COO gave a speech about my legacy. Everyone pretended like we were all friends when half of them voted to force me out. Sounds terrible. It was, but it's done now. She opened the wine and poured them each a glass. I called my financial advisor today, ran the numbers on what living looks like without a CEO salary. And I could live comfortably for about 300 years without working again, so that's not the problem. What is the problem? Figuring out who I am when I'm not building an empire. She took a drink. I've been the CEO for so long, I don't remember what else I wanted to be. So figure it out. Just like that? Just like that. Vivian laughed. You make everything sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. You try things until something fits. Like what? I don't know. What did you like before you started the company? She thought about it. Coding, building things, solving problems that seemed impossible. So do that. I can't just start another company. That defeats the whole purpose of quitting. Who said anything about a company? Build something for yourself, for fun, for the challenge. Build what? Whatever you want. She looked at him like he was speaking a foreign language. I don't know how to do things just for myself. Then learn. They ate cold Chinese food and drank mediocre wine and talked about possibilities. What if Vivian spent a year just learning things she'd never had time for? What if she volunteered somewhere? What if she wrote code for nonprofits who couldn't afford developers? What if she let herself be directionless for a while and saw where it led? That sounds irresponsible, Vivian said. That sounds like living. I've never been good at living. No time like the present to start. She smiled and leaned against him. I'm glad I have you. I'm glad I have you too. Even if my new boss is a nightmare and I'm back to barely scraping by. You're not barely scraping by. The promotion salary is still yours. For now. Who knows how long that lasts? What if it doesn't matter? It matters when I have a kid to feed. What if I helped? Marcus stiffened. We've talked about this. I know, but what if we're being stupid? I have resources. You need resources. Why not share them? Because I need to be able to take care of my daughter on my own. Why? Because that's what fathers do. That's what pride does. There's a difference. Marcus pulled away slightly. You think I'm being prideful? I think you're making things harder than they need to be because you're trying to prove something. I'm trying to not be a leech. You're not a leech. You're my partner. Partners share things. Not when the sharing is this unbalanced. Vivian set down her wine glass. Okay, let me ask you something. If I was the one struggling and you had the means to help, would you? Of course. Without hesitation? Yes. Then why won't you let me do the same? Marcus didn't have a good answer for that. The truth was complicated, wrapped up in ego and fear and the belief that accepting help meant admitting he couldn't handle things on his own. I don't want you to think I'm with you for your money, he finally said. I know you're not. Everyone else might think that, but I know better. Do you? Or is there a part of you that wonders? Vivian looked him straight in the eye. There's no part of me that wonders. You've proven who you are 100 times over. The only person still doubting it is you. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. What are you suggesting? Move in with me. He almost laughed. What? Move in with me. You and Lily. My place is sitting empty. It's too big for one person anyway. You'd have your own space? Lily would have her own room, and we could actually build a life together instead of splitting time between two apartments. Vivian, your place is a penthouse. So? So I can't afford half of a penthouse. I'm not asking you to. I own it outright. There's no rent, no mortgage, just living. That's insane. Why? Because couples don't just move in together after 4 months of dating. We're not just any couple. We've already been through more than most people go through in years. Why pretend we're taking things slow when we're not? Marcus's head was spinning. I need to think about it. Okay, think about it. But Marcus, she took his hand. Stop punishing yourself for things that aren't your fault. You didn't ask me to quit. You didn't ask me to fall in love with you. I made those choices because I wanted to, and I'm not going to let you carry guilt that doesn't belong to you. After Vivian left that night, Marcus lay awake for hours thinking about her offer, about what it would mean to move into her world instead of making her squeeze into his, about whether that was giving up or growing up. He talked to Lily about it the next morning over breakfast. Vivian wants us to move in with her, he said carefully. Lily's eyes went huge. Really? Yeah, what do you think about that? Would I get my own room? You'd get your own room. Would it be bigger than this one? Probably. Can I paint it purple? Marcus laughed. I think that could be arranged. Then yes, let's move in with Vivian. Just like that? Just like that. Lily took a bite of cereal. I like her, Dad, and she makes you smile. And maybe if we all live together, people will stop saying mean things because they'll see we're actually a family. Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds. Marcus called Vivian that afternoon. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, we'll move in. But on one condition. What's that? I pay for groceries and utilities. I contribute something. Marcus, that's the condition. Take it or leave it. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, deal. Deal. When? Is next weekend too soon? Next weekend is perfect. They moved the following Saturday with help from Jenny and a couple of Marcus's friends from his old department who didn't care about the gossip. Vivian's penthouse was absurd. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen bigger than Marcus's entire old apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the whole city. Lily ran from room to room screaming with excitement. Marcus tried not to have a panic attack about living somewhere worth more money than he'd make in 10 lifetimes. "You okay?" Vivian asked, finding him standing frozen in the living room. "This is a lot." "It's just a place." "It's not just a place. It's a statement about wealth inequality and how the other half lives. It's where we're going to have family dinners and movie nights and arguments about whose turn it is to do dishes. Stop seeing it as a symbol and start seeing it as a home." She was right. He hated that she was right. Lily picked the smallest bedroom, because I don't need a lot of space and this one has the best closet for hiding during hide and seek, and immediately started planning the purple paint scheme. Marcus put his clothes in half of Vivian's closet and tried not to feel like an imposter. That first night in the new place, they ordered pizza and sat on the floor of the living room because the furniture hadn't been delivered yet. Lily fell asleep on a pile of blankets, and Marcus carried her to her new purpleless room and tucked her in. When he came back, Vivian was standing by the windows looking out at the city lights. "Thank you for doing this," she said. "Thank you for offering. I'm still figuring out what comes next. The whole unemployed billionaire thing. Any ideas?" "Actually, yes, I've been thinking about what you said, about building something for myself." And I want to start a foundation, something that helps single parents get access to childcare and education and resources, something that makes it easier for people like you to build stable lives for their kids. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Vivian, I've been so focused on building wealth that I forgot wealth is supposed to be useful. This feels useful. This feels like it matters." "It does matter. You inspired it, you and Lily, watching you struggle with things that shouldn't be hard, seeing how much you love her despite everything being stacked against you. I want to help other people do the same thing." Marcus pulled her into a hug. "That's incredible." "It's a start." She pulled back to look at him. "I also want to marry you." Marcus's brain stopped working. "What?" "Not now, but eventually. I want to marry you and adopt Lily and build a real family. If you'll have me. Vivian, we've been together for 4 months. I know, I'm not asking today. I'm telling you where I'm headed, so you know." "That's insane." "Probably, but I've never been more sure of anything." Marcus kissed her, long and deep and full of everything he couldn't put into words. When they broke apart, he was grinning like an idiot. "Ask me again in a year," he said. "I will. I'll probably say yes. I'm counting on it." They stood there in their new shared space with their sleeping daughter down the hall and the city sprawling below them, and for the first time since this whole thing started, Marcus felt like they might actually make it. The next few months were an adjustment. Living together meant learning each other's worst habits. Vivian worked too much, even without a job. Marcus left dishes in the sink. Lily required constant mediation on whose turn it was to pick the movie, but they figured it out. Slowly, imperfectly, with plenty of arguments and mistakes and moments where they both wondered if this was sustainable. Vivian launched her foundation in January. Single Parent Support Initiative, because she was terrible at naming things, but excellent at execution. She hired a small team, secured funding, started building partnerships with schools and childcare centers. She was working again, but this time on her own terms. Marcus stayed at his terrible job because it paid the bills and had good health insurance. Derek continued to be insufferable. The work continued to be mind-numbing, but Marcus came home to a family every night, and that made it bearable. In March, Lily's school had a career day. Kids were supposed to bring their parents to talk about what they did for work. Lily asked if Vivian could come instead of Marcus. "Why?" Marcus asked, trying not to feel hurt. "Because everyone's seen dads with boring office jobs. Nobody's seen someone who gave up being a billionaire to help people." So Vivian went. She talked to a classroom of 7-year-olds about how sometimes the most important thing you can do is choose differently. How success isn't just about money or power. How helping people matters more than impressing them. The kids asked her if she missed being rich. "I'm still rich," Vivian said honestly, "but now I'm also happy. That's the difference." Emma's mom was there, volunteering as a classroom helper, and she watched the whole presentation with a sour expression. After, she cornered Vivian in the hallway. "Must be nice," she said, Having enough money that you can afford to play philanthropist while the rest of us actually work for a living. Vivian looked at her calmly. I work plenty. I just choose to work on things that matter instead of things that impress people like you. Excuse me? You spent months making my partner and his daughter feel like garbage because you were threatened by something you didn't understand. That's on you, not us. And frankly, I don't care what you think anymore. She walked away, and Emma's mom stood there sputtering. Lily reported the whole thing to Marcus later with undisguised glee. Vivian was so cool, Dad. She told off Emma's mom and didn't even yell, just said it calm and walked away like a boss. Like a former boss, Marcus corrected. Whatever. It was awesome. That night after Lily was asleep, Marcus found Vivian in their bedroom, looking at something on her laptop. What are you working on? Expansion plans for the foundation. We've got 3 schools signed up already. 5 more interested. If we can secure the funding, we could help hundreds of families by end of year. You love this. I really do. She closed the laptop. It's not the same rush as closing a billion-dollar deal, but it feels more real, more human. You're pretty amazing, you know that? I had a good teacher. Who? You. You taught me that success isn't about how much you accumulate, it's about how much you give. Marcus kissed her. When did I become the philosophical one? You always were. You just didn't notice. In June, exactly 1 year after that first coffee date, Marcus took Vivian back to the park where everything started, the same bench where she'd stood watching families with longing, the same pond where they'd fed ducks with Lily. Why are we here? Vivian asked. Because this is where you were crying, where you told me you didn't think you deserved happiness. I remember. And I want to ask you something here, where it all started. He got down on one knee. Vivian's hands flew to her mouth. Marcus, I know you said you wanted to marry me, and I said, ask me in a year, but I'm asking you instead. He pulled out a ring, nothing crazy expensive, just a simple band that he'd saved 3 months to buy. Will you marry me? Will you be Lily's mom? Will you build this weird, imperfect, beautiful life with us? Vivian was crying. Happy tears this time. Yes. Yes to all of it. He slid the ring on her finger and stood up and kissed her, while a few random parkgoers applauded. When they broke apart, Vivian was laughing and crying at the same time. I thought I was supposed to ask you, she said. You were taking too long. I was being patient. Patience is overrated. They sat on the bench holding hands and watching the families in the park. Couples walking their dogs. Parents chasing toddlers. Teenagers throwing frisbees. Ordinary happiness. The kind Vivian used to watch with longing. I used to stand here and think I was locked out, Vivian said quietly, like there was this whole world of normal human connection that wasn't meant for people like me. And now I know I was just scared, and it took someone breaking a coffee cup and seeing me cry to make me realize I didn't have to be. That's a weird origin story. We're a weird couple. Yeah, we really are. They got married 3 months later in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Lily was the flower girl and took her job so seriously that she lectured the other kids about proper petal distribution. Mrs. Chen came in her wheelchair, still recovering but doing better. Jenny cried through the whole thing. Vivian wore a simple dress. Marcus wore a suit he borrowed from a friend. Nothing fancy, nothing that screamed wealth or status, just 2 people choosing each other in front of the people who mattered. During the vows, Vivian promised to be present, to choose love over work, to remember that success meant nothing without someone to share it with. Marcus promised to let her help, to stop carrying everything alone, to trust that partnership meant neither of them had to be perfect. They both cried. Lily announced during the reception that she was going to be the best daughter anyone ever had, and if she wasn't, they should tell her so she could try harder. Everyone laughed, and Vivian hugged her and whispered something that made Lily beam. Later, Marcus asked what she'd said. I told her she was already the best, and now she's officially mine. We still need to do the adoption paperwork. I know, but she's mine where it matters. Vivian touched her chest. In here. The adoption went through in December. Lily Rose Hale became Lily Rose Hale Cole, and she insisted on seeing all the paperwork to make sure it was official. So now you're legally my mom? She asked Vivian. Legally and actually. Good. Because I already told everyone at school you were my mom, and it would be embarrassing if I was lying. They framed the adoption certificate and hung it in Lily's purple room next to her drawings and dinosaur posters. Marcus kept his terrible job for another year before finally finding something better. A position at a nonprofit that paid less, but aligned with his values. Derek threw a fit when he quit. Marcus didn't care. Vivian's foundation grew. By the second year, they were operating in 12 cities, helping thousands of families access resources that made single parenting slightly less impossible. She hired Marcus's neighbor Jenny to run the operations team. She partnered with schools and community centers and anyone who shared the vision. She worked hard, but she also came home for dinner. She never missed Lily's school events. She took weekends off. She learned to live instead of just succeed. On a Tuesday evening 2 years after they got married, Marcus came home to find Vivian and Lily building a blanket fort in the living room of their too-big penthouse. "What's happening here?" he asked. "We're making a dragon cave," Lily explained. Vivian needs to understand dragon habitat construction. "It's very educational," Vivian added seriously. Marcus dropped his bag and crawled into the fort with them. They ate dinner in there, pizza, naturally, and Lily fell asleep between them while they watched a movie on a tablet propped against pillows. "This is ridiculous," Marcus whispered. "This is perfect," Vivian corrected. And it was. Not in a fairy tale way, not in a way that fixed all their problems or made life easy, but perfect in the way that mattered, messy and complicated and real. Full of love that didn't come with conditions or expectations. Full of moments that weren't Instagram-worthy but were worth everything anyway. Marcus looked at his wife and his daughter, sleeping in a blanket fort in a penthouse, neither of them needed, but all of them called home, and he thought about that day in the break room when he'd dropped a coffee cup and seen something he wasn't supposed to see. He'd seen loneliness. He'd seen longing. He'd seen a woman who'd built an empire but forgotten to build a life. And somehow, impossibly, she'd chosen to tear down the empire and build the life instead. Not because it was easy, because it mattered. Because she'd learned what he'd always known, that happiness wasn't something you earned or achieved or conquered. It was something you chose every day, in small moments that added up to a life worth living. The billionaire who once stood crying in a break room watching other people's happiness had finally stopped watching. She was living it instead. And in the end, that was the only success that actually counted.